with as much transition that Georgia is going through with its roster during this offseason. There are a ton of new players. There are a lot of freshmen on this team. There are 10 transfers on this team. There's a lot of new on this team, which means a lot of stars left, right? Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, a few offensive linemen, Malachi Starks, right? A lot of talent left this football team, and that means it will need breakout guys. It will need players to have big years that they hadn't had in the past, or maybe they're a sophomore that's coming off of their true freshman season. There are players that Georgia at its core are just going to need to step up in 2025 if it's going to have a more successful season than it did in 2024, and that includes a team that won the SEC championship and was a first round playoff bye team, Georgia, last year. So I've got a few guys written down. I think that this list could be extended to half the roster almost, at least a lot of the guys starting, because look, there's not as much star power on this team. At least we don't know who the stars are going to be quite yet. But here are guys that I think just need to step up, break out, kind of whatever way you want to put it, have career years if Georgia wants to be successful and wants to get where it wants to get, if it wants to get where it wants to go. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. I've written a little bit about this on the website, but please make sure you are checking out dogpost.com. Can't do it all here. Try to, but you just can't. Make sure you are checking out the website. Let's talk about Nate Frazier for a minute. Let's start off with one of the layups with Nate Frazier. Look, Georgia's running game last year was not where it needed to be. It didn't accrue 2,000 rushing yards. It didn't have stability. And what do I mean by that is from game to game, you didn't know who Georgia's best running back was going to be because Etienne was either suspended or hurt. Nate Frazier was a true freshman that had a few really good games and had a couple games where I was like, okay, he's a true freshman. And they didn't have a lot of depth behind that. And they don't seem to trust handing the ball off to Cash Jones the way they trust to throw the ball to Cash Jones. So it was a run game that struggled, and I think it struggled in part because of three things. The backs weren't steady, the offensive line kind of underperformed, and the passing game underperformed, and it all meshed together to where Georgia's run game was the worst it was in almost 20 years. Nate Frazier, as a true freshman, showed a lot of promise. Right? He stepped foot in that Clemson game. He was the main running back in that game. He goes for over 100 total yards. He has a touchdown. He made plays that kind of reminded you of like a little bit of a blend of a Sony Michel and a DeAndre Swift. He celebrated like that. He wants to be great. He wants to be great at Georgia. He really wants to be a Georgia running back great. That's just the truth about Nate Frazier, and I think he has the potential to be that. He was a borderline 5-star running back, right? A high 4-star. He is heading into year 2. He'll be a true sophomore. He's the clear-cut RB1 for Georgia this coming season. They brought in Josh McCray from Illinois to add depth and to add another power back, which it sorely needs on this team when you didn't really have one a year ago, with the Robinsons both being hurt. Who knows what's going to happen with Roger Robinson? He didn't practice this spring either, so they bring in Josh McCray. You still got Cash Jones. You got some other guys that might step up, some younger players. But Nate Frazier should be RB1, and it's his turn to break out, right? That's what you want if you're Georgia. Sticking to offense, he's the obvious one when you talk about the offense, when you talk about potential breakout players. It's not quite as obvious the rest of the position groups. I'm going to go with an answer that maybe other people would say, and that's going to be Zachariah Branch. And I don't feel like a visionary saying this, right? Like I don't feel like I'm coming up with something that other people aren't saying necessarily when I say, hey, Zachariah Branch has an opportunity to break out. But here's why I'm using that terminology with him, since he already is an established player in college football, right? Coming off of 2 years at USC. He's doing year 3 at Georgia. It wasn't that great. This is a former 5-star wide receiver. This is an explosive player. He was the number 1 wide receiver recruit in the 2023 class. He played with Caleb Williams. He played with some lesser quarterbacks this past season. And now he comes to Georgia And there are expectations for him to be very good for Georgia. I think from a special team standpoint, he is an immediate upgrade. From an explosive playmaking standpoint, I think he's an immediate upgrade at wide receiver. Can he be a breakout player, though? He's only accrued about 800 receiving yards total in his 2 seasons and like 3 or 4 total offensive touchdowns. That's including rushing in 2 years at USC. That's not really 5-star wide receiver production. Now, it's difficult to produce sometimes in the Georgia offense that spreads it around so much, but if you are a star, you are going to get yours. Brock Bowers got his when he was the guy. George Pickens got his when he was the guy. When you're the number one player, the number one weapon on the outside, you will get the ball. If that is the case with Zachariah Branch, he should have north of 700 receiving yards. He should have close to 10 receiving touchdowns. If he is the explosive talent that we think he is, and he has a breakout year, I'd consider that a breakout year, putting together those types of numbers in a Georgia offense that is going to get the ball to a lot of people. So on the offensive side of the ball, I think Nate Frazier and Zachariah Branch are kind of your answers for breakout type of players. Defense. Let's go to the secondary and work our way down to the defensive line. In the secondary, another one of those kind of more obvious, but second-year guy in KJ Bolden. When are they not going to do it? Kirby Smart and this defensive staff bringing in a star safety, having just extreme talent at the safety position. KJ Bolden is the next guy up. He is fast. He has instincts. He has ball skills. I saw the ball skills for sure as a wide receiver at Buford High School down the road. It's his turn, right? Malachi Starks is out. Dan Jackson's out. But man, this line of safeties, Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith the year before, and Christopher Smith and Lewis Seen and all those guys, it all leads to KJ Bolden now, who's entering year 2 and is going to be expected to be one of the best players on Georgia's defense, one of the best players on Georgia's team, and one of the best safeties in college football. I think he has the opportunity to do that. This is totally a breakout season for him. At least that's what the expectation would be when there's zero competition for him to take snaps in the secondary. He is clear-cut the best safety on Georgia's roster at this point, and he's going to be expected to be one of the leaders of this football team. So KJ Bolden. I want to talk about a couple of linebackers, one being an outside and one being kind of a hybrid. Let's talk about Chris Cole first. It'll be year 2 for Chris Cole. I think he's going to rotate in more with these linebackers. With Smile Munda and Jalen Walker out, that means more snaps for Chris Cole, who's going to mix in at inside linebacker a lot with C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson. And I think he's going to get a little bit of time as an edge rusher. Why do I think he's going to get a little bit of time as an edge rusher? Georgia doesn't have a lot of edge rushers. They brought in Army edge rusher Ella Madozie for a reason. He's probably Georgia's best at that spot, most likely. But I think Chris Cole's going to get asked to rush the passer at least a little bit. Now that leads me to my next guy, which is Gabe Harris Jr. This is year 3 for Gabe Harris Jr. He's the oldest tenured edge rusher on Georgia. And it's his turn, right? 4-star guy heading into year 3. Got some playing time last year, made a handful of plays. Damon Wilson transfers. Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Chaz Chambliss gone. Gabe Harris is going to be a starter on this defense, and it is go time for Gabe Harris. And that's just the truth of it. So I think Chris Cole is going to kind of have a hybrid role, maybe a little bit of a Jalen Walker role, and I think Gabe Harris Jr. needs to step up because he's going to be out there on the field a lot. And then defensive line. On the interior, Jordan Hall, man, it's his time. There's been buzz about Christian Miller. I think Christian Miller is going to have a good season for Georgia, but it's Jordan Hall that was a former 5-star recruit, a former top 3 or 4 recruit in the 2023 recruiting class. Yeah, in the 2023 class. He is one of those types of players, and he's had a lot of injuries. He's had to be behind certain guys. But now there is no competition. It's him and Christian Miller. And Jordan Hall, I just think you need more talent to step up on that defensive line if you expect Georgia to have the season that it is used to having. Those are kind of the guys that I think are potential breakout players for Georgia. I think it's important that they play well if Georgia's going to have the season that it wants, which is to compete for a national championship. At least a couple of these guys have to break out in the way that I just talked about how they can and how I know at their core they can as football players. Do you agree? Who is another breakout guy you think needs to step up for Georgia? Let us know in the comments down below, and I appreciate you watching.